The Honda Civic Type R has been our trusty long-termer at the Carfection office for quite some time now, and we thought it would be good to answer some of the questions you had about the car. So we put it out to Instagram, and here are some of the top questions and the answers to them. Would it be better as rear-wheel drive? Well, no. The whole raison d'etre of this car is a front-wheel drive hot hatch. It's a traditional setup. You can't do rear-wheel drive hot hatches. That's how BMW does it with the 1 Series. But for me, even though all-wheel drive is acceptable, for a real hot hatch, front-wheel drive is the way to go. So, no. How easy is it to heel and tow? Well, extremely easy, considering that this car has auto blip. So when you're on the brakes, going down a gear, it automatically blips the throttle for you. So yes, it's very easy. Is it the best Civic ever produced? And if not, what does it lack? That's a tricky one to answer because it's arguably the most competent, it's certainly the fastest, and you can drive this thing at breakneck speeds without ever really feeling like the car is getting away from you. And that might be the thing that's lacking, that tiny bit of fear, that little fraction of excitement when you push it a little bit harder than perhaps you should. But in terms of performance, yes, I'd say this is the best Civic ever made. Is the aluminium gear knob cold in the morning? Yes, it's absolutely freezing in the morning to the point of being unpleasant to touch. In those first 10 minutes in the car, every gear shift feels a bit of a chill, but eventually it does warm up. How much attention does it get? Can it fly under the radar? Teenage boys love it, little kids like to point at it, but apart from that, it's not like you're driving around in a Lamborghini or anything. It gets a bit of attention, but nothing you can't handle. If Carlsberg made a hot hatch, would it be the Type R? Yes? Is it still cool to turn up in a Type R if you're a grown-up? That depends where you're turning up. At Cars and Coffee? Well, yes. Is it at a funeral? Maybe not. Is it a good daily driver? Well, that might be the most important question. And whilst during the week I am Carfection guy, during the weekends and in the evenings I'm married father of 2 and I've got shopping to do and I've got kids to transport. So I've had the kids' seats in the back and my wife in the passenger seat, and I've been driving up and around town, going to IKEA, to Tesco's, and living with it on the day-to-day. It's spacious, it's comfortable enough, although my wife tends to disagree with the seat on that front. But yes, it can be used fully as a daily driver. What kind of car could you get on the used car market for the same amount? Well, for the Civic Type R, you'll be looking from about £32,000 before extras. And for that kind of money, I'd be looking to get a BMW M2, and I think it would be a tough choice between the two. Do the looks become more or less annoying over time? Well, that kind of presumes they were annoying at all to start with, which I never thought they were. I still enjoy looking at this car. It's not quite as shocking or controversial as it was when I first saw it, but I still like looking back at it after I leave the car. Can it be more fun than a similarly priced rear-wheel drive car? Well, that question needs qualifying. If you're talking new car, then I think you'd struggle. Bang for buck, you're getting a lot of power in this car. For a similarly priced rear-wheel drive car, there aren't that many options right now that are going to have that same thrilling engine, that powerful push forward. But if you look at the second-hand market, as I said, you could be looking at something like a BMW M2, which can be an absolute blast to drive. Overall fuel consumption. Well, I've been running at about 30 mpg, that's British mpg, which is okay for a performance car. Ideally, we'd like to see a bit north of that for something that you're using on the daily, but I've seen a lot worse. Are the wheels too big for UKB roads? No, I'd say they're very noisy. The NVH in this car is pretty poor, but no, they're not too big. Is it too track focused to be used as a daily? Well, there is a question. It depends on how much you appreciate a softer ride. This generation of Civic Type R does have a softer suspension than previous generations through all of its driving modes, but even back down in comfort, it is a little bit bumpy, and going over anything other than ultra smooth tarmac, well, you feel everything. It's not too track focused. It is very competent out on track, and at the launch I had a blast tearing this thing around the Lausitz ring. but it's not so focused on things like lap times at the Nürburgring to forget daily driving dynamics. So no. Does it make me want to go out for a drive? Yes, if I've got a couple of hours to spare and the weather isn't terrible and I really fancy a quick blast, this is something I know I can go out and have a quick thrill in. So yes. How competent is it in very slick conditions? If it is extremely slippery underfoot, I have had to be a little bit more careful, especially when pulling away at junctions in sport mode or in R mode. You do feel a bit of slip. Not any more than you'd necessarily expect from a car with 300 brake horsepower going through the front wheels. But yes, it's not necessarily going to shield you from all of that. That power is there for a reason, and use it wisely. How is the sound system? Well, the sound quality is decent. I've been using it to blast out power ballads all morning. But the interface on the infotainment system can get a little bit frustrating, even after you've used it a bunch of times, if you're trying to get to a result quickly. Does the exhaust sound good, or is it just for show? Well, pop it into R mode, drop it down a cog. It's there, it's entertaining, but it's not going to blow you away. What's the mileage? Well, we've put on over 3,000 miles since we got the car about 4 months ago. How does it compare to the Megane RS? Does it miss out on not having rear wheel steer? I certainly don't miss rear wheel steer on this car. Having the understeer dialed out of this car already means that I'm not so reliant on bringing the back round with trickery like rear wheel steer. And the fact that there's no torque steer either means that this car already feels really nicely balanced. Adding rear wheel steer to it, well, it's just unnecessary. For me personally, I rate the Civic above the Megane, which leads us on to our next question. How does the car compete with its rivals? One place where the Civic Type R really does fall behind on its competitors is the interior. It's certainly nowhere the build quality of the hot hatches from Mercedes or BMW, which you would expect, but it also falls well shy of Mini's interior, and I don't even like it as much as the Focus RS. Buttons and the switch gear all feel quite plasticky. The colouring is exciting, if a little garish. It's the weak point of the car. In terms of performance though, it can really hold its own against absolutely anything out there. And what's more, at absolute top speed, it feels way more stable than most of its rivals. And if you want to be able to push this thing as fast as you possibly can go without feeling like it's going to spit you off the road, this car really delivers. If you want the most thrilling and exciting ride, I myself got a few more kicks out of the Focus RS when we had that as a long-termer, but this will definitely outperform it with me behind the wheel. So all in all, we've had a fantastic time with the car so far, and we're looking forward to many more miles with it. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below and we'll get back to them as soon as we can. But for now, from behind the wheel of the Civic Type R, it's goodbye.